I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Thursday, April the 12th, where this market, of course the board and the fat cattle market is just bouncing around steady. It kind of reminds me of a auctioneer's chant, just kind of bouncing around the handle there where the bid is, but ready to go in any direction at a moment's notice. And that's kind of where we're at on this on the board especially. And it appears that your fat cattle market's going to be right in there too, but your cash feeders and your sale barns are really taking off on Wednesday here. We've got some of our featured sales on Wednesday, and if the market's going to take off, that's a good time for it to do it. But look at the board on Wednesday. June live cattle futures down 52 cents to end the day at 101.57. April is actually up 70, which it kind of needs to be. We're getting pretty tight in there, and it's one of the few times you've seen the spot board come up to meet the cash market, although it's been pulling it down here for the last several weeks. But up 70 on the April to end the day at 113.50, which is still 3.5 off what the market is being set at this week. May feeder cattle up 27 cents at 135.55. April's up 45 at 135.27. Look at your fat cattle market, and this was one week that everybody was kind of paying attention to the Fed Cattle Exchange, that online time sale there. They did have over 3,900 head of cattle with a big consignment of big heavy cattle out of Nebraska. Of course, the sales were disappointing, which they have been on that deal since we started, but they did sell over 500 head, most of them all for current delivery, with from 117 to 118 with a weighted average price of 117.71. Did have one pin for a 2 to 4 week delivery there that sold at 114, and that's kind of the way things have been going. Later on in the early afternoon, we did start seeing the Texas Panhandle sell fat cattle at 117, which would be steady. But on that Fed Cattle Exchange, it wasn't quite as easy to see what the prices were on there. I'm not sure why they didn't post the prices. Maybe they will later, and that's just the deal. But market transparency is quite a thing. But luckily, we've had the Government Accountability Office, that GAO report from USDA, come out and said that they had done another check, which they do that periodically every few years, but they had run another check through there and found out that there's no collusion behavior among these packers. Whew, that's a relief, because a lot of us thought that these packers were out to screw us. But evidently they're not working together, or just they're kind of just showing good competition for these cattle, just out trying to make a living, scratch out a few bucks here and there where they can. Didn't say whether or not they're really worried about the health of the cattle business as an industry as they sink money into research and development of this fake meat. But we did see that that GAO audit said there was no lack of competition, and the reason that this market has been so volatile, losing big percentages of the market in short amounts of time, was just fundamental reasons. But quite a relief now. But they did say that they did recommend that the AMS, the Ag Marketing Service, which I used to be an employee of, start sharing more information, which basically is saying they think that Market News should let packers and stockyards agents have more access to the mandatory price reporting data that's coming through. Now that's new, because before just your market reporters on the mandatory side got to look at that raw data coming in. And I'm not sure if that's going to be an issue that comes up, or whether it's all right or what, but nothing better than packers or stockyard people or buyers or sellers like better than the P&S agents having more information. But let's look at your feeder cattle market on Wednesday, your real-time index on Beef Market Central, middle of the day. I'm doing this a little bit early. I wanted to run out to the Amarillo sale barn and watch part of that Fed Beef Challenge that Texas Cattle Feeders Association puts on. So doing that a little bit early, and not sure what kind of shape I might be in after that deal's over. So your RTI middle of the afternoon set at 136.09, up 54 cents, and I think most of that rise could be blamed upon the weights coming down. As I noted on the previous conversation, that the average on those 700 to 899 pound steers up through the 12 states was going way up into the 800 and teens, but now backed off to 809. That's going to make your price go up a little bit. But man, did we have some featured sales that were really selling well. And I want to talk about OKC West, of course, which they finally had a run of feeder cattle. You know, even though we say numbers are tight, there's always cattle out there to sell. And with the last 2 or 3 weeks being extremely light receipts, we've been expecting some cattle to show up there in El Reno. And finally they did on Wednesday, expecting around 7,500 head of feeder cattle. So a good test of the market. And they just had a good test of the heifers when I pulled that data from Cattle Market Central there in the middle of the afternoon. But the heifers sure look $5 to $10 higher. I would assume that the steers will kind of follow suit. But look at that automated report on the heifers. The popular weights of feeder heifers at 1,016 head of 7-weight heifers, average 756 at 127.96. That was nearly $6 higher. And 571 head of 8-weight heifers, average 822 at up against 122, and that was close to $11 higher. So they was having a heck of a good sale in El Reno. I do want you guys to pay attention on DV Auction, a new customer there in Northeast Georgia livestock market there in Athens, Georgia, is having a special graded feeder cattle auction. They'll have some big groups on there. It's going to be an evening sale. If you're kind of on the eastern side, you know about those graded sales. They'll have those cattle put into light groups and be bigger offerings of drafts than what you normally see at a sale in the southeast. But that's going to start at 7 o'clock in the evening Eastern time, or 6 o'clock Central there on Thursday. So be sure and tune into that on DV Auction. Another market that was happening on Wednesday, St. Joe Stockyards there, my old stomping grounds, had 2,400 head and just selling them right there like hotcakes, $5 to $12 higher in early sales there, and just ginning right along. Bassett, Nebraska had a heck of a sale, which they always have a heck of a sale, but really posting some prices up there like we'd never had any hiccup in this market. One individual quote out of Bassett, Nebraska was 90 head of 522 pound steers at $204.50. Now Bassett was also selling their 7-weight cattle well into the 50s or the 150s all day long, but thought I'd pull this individual quote out of the St. Joe Stockyards. The Critton steers there, 65 head of them, weighed 723 pounds at 156.10. That's your feeder flash for Thursday.